This is reposted.
Sometimes when we do this show, I'm glad that we have a pre-meeting. Sometimes I'm glad that we don't. I guess we don't have a pre-meeting. And this one, I'm excited that we don't because I'm conflicted. I don't have an answer. And I want you to tell me what I should think. Today, we're talking about done is better than perfect. It's a quote that's largely attributed to Sheryl Sandberg, but it's kind of something that's been a thought that people have thrown around a lot of times. I've heard it in the entertainment industry. But we found this article on planningmindfully.com, and they come up with a different range of reasons that done is better than perfect. And I think it kind of depends on what you're talking about. But do you subscribe to this thought?
You know who doesn't turn things in?
You.
Perfectionists don't turn
Yeah.
things in because they don't want to release anything until it's freaking perfect. And guess what? I happen to live with a perfectionist, and she doesn't turn a lot of crap in because it takes her forever.
So you might subscribe to done is better than perfect?
Dude, I am completely done is better than perfect. For instance, oftentimes LinkedIn will say, hey, you should apply for this job.
Done.
And I will, like, if I don't just take the second and half-ass send in the application, change the resume and do it, I will never do it. Whereas my wife wouldn't be able to do it because it all have to be perfect. It would take her 20 hours and then she'd forget about it, not do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that they talk about on planning mindfully is perfection creates paralysis. And
Yep.
that is not something that I have. I think, like we say so many times, know who you are and know what you're about, some version of that. Like for me, I need to be more leaning towards perfection, and maybe your wife needs to be leaning more towards this. I was thought of reasons that, like, situations where you want perfect, your surgery, maybe a chemotherapy plan, but like for art or presentations at work, like it's better to get it out into the world and receive feedback because you can always change it.
Art's interesting. Let's talk about this for a second. What happens if a perfectionist mates with a non-perfectionist and then have a baby? Guess what happens? Sometimes you get a crazy perfectionist artist, which is my middle son.
Oh.
Hey, would you make grandpa a letter for his birthday? Would you write him a card? Holy hell! He rips that thing up like 50 times. I got to start over. Picture's not right. It is insane when perfectionism meets creativity. It's, oh my gosh.
Shout out to your middle kid, the only one that's never been on this show. He did the artwork behind me and the artwork behind you.
That took him like 12 times.
Something when I first started thinking about this, I was like, for sure, construction is not this. Like we just had our cabinets put in, and had I done it, they'd be uneven, the counters would slope, and you want a perfectionist doing your finished carpentry. But then I thought more macro, like if you're having a house built and you want to move in, like if you have a perfectionist doing everything, like is it better to not have any caulk on your crown molding, or is it better just to get in? So again, it can go either way.
You're totally talking about my father-in-law. He does all the work on his own house. He does the crown molding. It takes him forever. My favorite story about a perfectionist is him. His father-in-law, Pat, they passed away. So he was going to sell all of their dining room stuff. He basically took their dining room and put it in his garage. And when people would come on Craigslist and offer him money, he'd be like, no, I listed it for such and such. I want that price. He would never haggle. Perfectionists do not give an inch, and they want it to be done perfect, and it takes forever.
That sounds so exhausting to me. Quick carpentry tip: a little spackle, a little paint makes a carpenter what he ain't. So that's definitely the philosophy I try to fly by. But maybe if you have something you care about, you don't want to work on that. But again, with the getting stuff out in the world, you get feedback, you get reps. Goes back to what I always say: just do something, and then you start figuring it out on the fly, because there's probably a lot of ideas that, for writers, again, back to art, no one puts pen to paper because they want to have the perfect idea before they start writing it.
You know where perfectionists and people that want to get stuff done, where it's a nightmare? Taking a perfectionist camping. Just like watching them put a tent together, or the stakes in the ground, or when you close up, like trying to get all of the dirt out of the tent and all of the dirt off the foot mat. It's like, oh my gosh, leaving camping with a perfectionist. You just like, oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we both kind of agree on done is better than perfect.
Although I will say this, though. I did do a resume for a job, and it is totally half-assed, but it's done. But I'm sure there's a perfectionist that applied as well, and the grammar's perfect and everything's perfect. So maybe they have a leg up. So there is some point. You say no.
I'm shaking my head no, because have you ever been on the receiving end of applications?
Yeah, not really.
Inundated, and like maybe if you get one handed to you, you'll read through it. But otherwise, you're like, I just want to get through this stack. Someone pick the top 4 candidates, and I'll talk to them. So, I mean, while I do try to get in the minutia, if it's between you and one other person, that might make a difference. But like getting noticed, I don't think it's going to get you
You
there.
shouldn't tell me that, because that's going to make me go through my resume even quicker the next time I have to put it together.
Yeah, and then I guess another aspect of it that maybe you would have insight into what Karen thinks. They said that done is better than perfect shows that you're confident. It shows that you're willing to put that out in the world. I wouldn't describe Karen as a meek or unconfident person, but like, do you think that applies?
No, man, it's just family systems that was just so ingrained in her. That's just how you do things. I don't know if I've looked into the psychology behind it. I just feel like it's just for all those years in her house. This is how you do it. And that's how she has to do it.
Yeah, I guess you just kind of become who you are and you keep going with it. Well,
Oh,
the show is done.
oh,
If you want to reach out, please reach out. You can find us at Reposted Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I'm Andrew Keller for Cheryl Sandberg saying thanks for stopping by.